The work boots were pristine, unused for months, sitting beside the man's feet as Jason Statham talked about playing tough guys and the importance of redefining masculinity. Ellen was discussing the action star's latest film when she noticed the construction worker in the fourth row staring at his hands while tears streamed down his weathered face. What happened next would prove that sometimes the greatest act of strength isn't lifting heavy objects or fighting bad guys, but admitting when you're broken and asking for help to put yourself back together. It was a high-energy Tuesday afternoon at the Ellen DeGeneres show, and the studio buzzed with anticipation. 400 audience members had gathered to see one of action cinema's most authentic tough guys discuss his craft. Ellen, striking in a sharp steel blue blazer with subtle silver detailing, was thoroughly enjoying her conversation with Jason Statham, who sat with characteristic understated intensity in the guest chair, wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit that couldn't quite hide the working-class authenticity that had made him believable as an action hero, his presence filling the studio with that blend of genuine toughness and unexpected vulnerability. "Jason," Ellen said, leaning forward with genuine interest, "you've built a career playing these incredibly physical, tough characters, but you've also talked about how important it is for men to show vulnerability, to redefine what strength really means." Jason's expression grew thoughtful, his distinctive, gravelly voice carrying more depth than his action roles might suggest. "Ellen, I think we've got it all wrong about what makes a man strong. Real strength isn't about never falling down. It's about getting back up when you do fall. It's about admitting when you need help, when you're scared, when you're not sure you can handle what life's throwing at you." The audience listened with the kind of respectful attention that Jason's sincerity commanded. This wasn't typical action star promotion. This was real conversation about masculinity and mental health. "And you've mentioned that some of your hardest roles weren't the physical stunts, but the emotional scenes," Ellen continued. "How do you prepare for that vulnerability?" "By remembering that every tough guy I know has moments when he feels completely lost," Jason said honestly. "Construction workers, mechanics, soldiers, fathers trying to provide for their families. The strongest men I've ever met are the ones who can admit when they're struggling and reach out for support." That's when Ellen noticed him. In the fourth row, slightly to the right, sat a man who appeared to be in his early 40s. He had graying hair, calloused hands, and wore a simple flannel shirt over jeans. Beside his feet sat a pair of pristine work boots that clearly hadn't been worn in months. His name was Rick Martinez, though Ellen didn't know it yet. What caught Ellen's attention was the way Rick was staring at his hands while Jason spoke about men struggling, tears streaming silently down his face as he flexed fingers that seemed to cause him pain. Rick's shoulders were hunched forward, and Ellen could see him repeatedly clenching and unclenching his fists, as if testing whether they still worked properly. Ellen's instincts, sharpened through 20 years of reading her audiences, told her this wasn't someone inspired by Jason's words about redefined masculinity. This was someone living the exact crisis Jason was describing. "Jason," Ellen said gently, "hold that thought about men reaching out for support. I think someone in our audience needs to hear this conversation right now." Jason followed Ellen's gaze toward Rick, his expression immediately shifting from entertainer to deeply concerned human being as he recognized the signs of someone in genuine distress. Ellen stood up from her chair and took several steps toward the audience. "Sir in the fourth row, are you okay?" Rick looked up, startled and embarrassed by the sudden attention of 400 people and multiple cameras. He quickly wiped his tears and tried to straighten his shoulders, falling back into the defensive posture of a man taught never to show weakness. "I'm fine," Rick said, his voice rough with emotion and carrying the accent of someone who'd worked with his hands his entire life. "Sorry, I shouldn't be. This is supposed to be entertaining." Ellen walked down the steps that separated the stage from the audience, something she did only when every instinct told her someone was fighting battles that couldn't wait for commercial breaks. "What's your name?" Ellen asked, now standing directly in front of Rick's row. "Rick Martinez. I'm a construction foreman. Or I was." Ellen knelt down in the aisle beside Rick's row, her steel blue blazer spreading around her as she created a safe space in what must have felt like overwhelming exposure. "Rick, tell me about those work boots beside you." Rick looked down at the pristine boots, then back up at Ellen with such raw pain that it made everyone in the studio understand they were witnessing something profound. "I haven't been able to wear them for 8 months. Construction accident, scaffolding collapse, crushed 3 vertebrae in my back, damaged nerves in both hands. Doctor says I'll never do manual labor again." The studio fell into that particular silence that happens when hundreds of people confront the reality of a man whose identity has been stripped away along with his ability to work. From the stage, Jason Statham stood up immediately. Without being asked, without consulting producers, he walked down to join Ellen and Rick. This celebrity interview had just become something infinitely more important. Jason approached Rick with the careful respect of someone who understood that some battles leave invisible scars. "Rick," Jason said, his voice carrying that authority that made him believable as a leading man. "How long have you been in construction?" 24 years, Rick replied, his voice growing stronger despite his pain. "Started when I was 18, worked my way up to foreman. I was good at it, you know? I could build things that lasted, lead a crew, provide for my family." Jason knelt beside Ellen, creating an intimate circle that acknowledged Rick's dignity while offering support. "And now?" Jason asked gently. Rick's composure cracked completely. "Now I can't even open a jar for my wife. Can't help my teenage son with yard work. I sit at home all day while she works double shifts as a nurse, and I feel like I'm not a man anymore." Ellen felt tears welling in her own eyes as she watched this exchange unfold. "Rick, what does being a man mean to you?" Ellen asked gently. "Providing for your family, protecting them, being strong when they need you to be strong. But I can't do any of that anymore. Some days the pain is so bad I can't get out of bed. Other days I don't see the point." Jason's expression had shifted into something Ellen had rarely seen from any celebrity, a fierce recognition of pain that transcended entertainment. "Rick, I want you to listen to me very carefully," Jason said with quiet intensity. "For 24 years, you built things. You led people. You provided for your family. That doesn't disappear because your back is injured." Rick looked up at Jason with something approaching hope for the first time since the conversation began. "But I can't work anymore. I can't do the things that made me who I was." "The things that made you who you are," Jason corrected firmly, "aren't what you could lift or build. They're how you treated your crew, how you loved your family, how you showed up every day for 24 years and did honest work." Ellen stood up slowly, her heart breaking for this man who was grieving the loss of his former self. "Rick, have you talked to anyone about these feelings? About the days when you don't see the point?" Rick shook his head. "Men in my family don't talk about feelings. We work through problems. We don't ask for help." Jason reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out something unexpected, a small card with worn edges. "Rick," Jason said, "this is the business card of a counselor who specializes in helping men deal with identity crisis after injury. He's former military, understands what it's like when your body can't do what your mind expects it to do." He pressed the card into Rick's hand. "Getting help isn't giving up on being a man. It's fighting to become the man your family needs you to be now, in this situation, with these limitations." Ellen began removing her steel blue blazer. "Rick, this blazer has been with me through some of my most important interviews, But today, it's witnessing something more important than any celebrity story. It's witnessing real courage. She placed the blazer around Rick's shoulders. You came here today feeling like you're not the man you used to be. But the man sitting here, fighting through pain, worried about his family, asking hard questions about his worth, that's still a man worth respecting. But it was Jason's next words that broke through Rick's despair completely. Rick, in every action film I've ever made, the hero gets knocked down. Sometimes badly. Sometimes it looks like he's finished. But the moment that makes him a hero isn't when he's winning. It's when he gets back up, finds a new way to fight, figures out how to be strong even when everything's changed. Jason stood up and addressed the cameras directly. If there are men watching this who've been injured, who've lost work, who feel like they're not the men they used to be, please know that strength comes in many forms. Please know that asking for help is the most courageous thing you can do. The moment that brought the entire studio to sustained applause came when Ellen asked Rick what he wanted other injured workers to know. I want them to know that we're not broken. We're just different now, Rick said, his voice growing stronger as he clutched Jason's business card. And maybe being different means we get to figure out new ways to be useful, new ways to take care of the people we love. Jason's eyes filled with tears. That's exactly right, Rick. You're not less of a man. You're a man facing a different challenge. 3 months later, Rick Martinez appeared on the Ellen DeGeneres show again. But this time he was accompanied by 5 other injured workers he'd been counseling through their own identity crises. Jason Statham, who had stayed in regular contact with Rick, appeared via video to celebrate their progress and announce the launch of a support network specifically designed to help manual laborers transition after career-ending injuries. The segment sparked a national conversation about masculinity, identity, and the mental health challenges faced by men whose careers are ended by injury or illness. Rick became an advocate for worker mental health, speaking at construction sites about the importance of redefining strength and seeking help. Ellen learned that day that her job wasn't to interview famous people about their latest projects. Her job was to create moments where traditional definitions of strength could be challenged, where men could learn that vulnerability is courage, and where identity could be rebuilt on foundations stronger than physical ability. Jason Statham learned that the most important action sequences happen not on movie sets, but in moments when real men facing real challenges find the courage to rewrite their own stories. And Rick Martinez learned that sometimes when you think you've lost everything that made you who you were, that's exactly when you discover who you really are underneath the job title, underneath the physical abilities, in the place where real strength has always lived. Because the most powerful heroes aren't the ones who never fall down. They're the ones who get back up, ask for help, and show other men that there's more than one way to be strong, more than one way to matter, more than one way to be the hero of your own story.